Well, 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 if it isn't Mr. Valley Forged. Well, have you actually ever used a rotary before? Like, ever? Well, of course I have. Aren't I a laser business professional? Don't I make videos on YouTube about lasers all the time? Of course I've used a rotary. All right. So I've never used a rotary before, but I will now, and guess we'll just see how it goes. Hey, welcome to another Valley Forged. As you can see in the intro, I have never used a rotary before, so this is it. This is a practice for me. Why, you may ask, out of the so many lasers that I've reviewed, and yes, they've sent me rotaries and I've just never used them. Reason is I just haven't had the necessity. I make so much stuff already. The thought of adding tumblers or glasses or all this other thing to my repertoire didn't make any sense to me. I could barely keep up with all the stuff I'm already making. But I do notice that some stores that I've been working with have said, hey, can you make these for me? Or I've had just lately, I had a gym that asked me to make things for them since I'd already been making signs and things. And up until now, I've just said no. And frankly, I didn't want to change my machine over to being able to do rotary and then having to get it all set up and whatever, just so that I could make a few of these. And, the first one, everything just has to be perfect. And so my thoughts were it just wasn't worth it. And I still kind of hold to that reasoning. But when the Nano 12 came, I thought, okay, now I could have this tiny little thing, or pretty small, and I could, stick it over in a corner, leave it permanently set up with a rotary, and then I would be able to just easily do that and then still run my regular machine. Wouldn't be an issue. And so it's the first time where I said, okay, I'll try out the rotary because I can see where it makes sense for me. It might make sense for other people. If you wanted to, say, do rotary at a show or something like this, you're not going to bring your whole laser, right? But you might bring something like this because it's somewhat easy. It's a possibility. I don't know. I am definitely not advanced enough in rotaries now to be able to tell, okay, this is what I can do. But I know I can make things, which you can see on the screen. I have gotten this figured out. I am able to make tumblers with my Nano 12 with the rotary attachment, and it's very, very simple as long as you understand some basic things. So of course it uses light burn, which was, that's a deal breaker for me. If your machine doesn't use light burn for a rotary, I wouldn't probably do it because I already didn't want to have to go through all the trouble of learning it. And now you're going to want me to use a different software. So definitely having it being light burn compatible and the easiest version of that made it super, super simple. The setup of this machine was ridiculously easy. They have a video. Of course, you can follow the instructions or use a video. The wire, it has a colored wire that plugs into the colored spot. It's not a lot of switching to do, not a lot of things. Very simple. The one place where I got stuck, and I could bring up pictures of that, I guess, but you can see this. You can see that it's not exactly perfect. So what I did, and I would advise other people to do this as well, is I used paper. And I put it around my tumbler and I used that to practice. So of course I just used a low setting and worked my way up to where I was getting a good print on the the paper, and then I practiced with that, which is a good thing because obviously it looks beautiful, but it's all stretched out. And why is that? Well, it's because, I went to American public schools, and I didn't really learn anything. I just had a good time. So evidently, there is something called a diameter, which is different than the millimeters. So what you do with these, and it comes with everything to do this, you measure the millimeters around your tumbler or whatever it is you're going to print on. That's literally the only measurement or anything you really have to do. Everything else is super, super simple. And all you do is plug in the number. So I went ahead and I measured the diameter, or I measured around my tumbler, and I'll post a picture of the tumblers that I got. I think they're reasonable. They're pretty much cylindrical, so you're not dealing with ups and downs and things. For a beginner, I'm thinking this is the way to go, right? Just keep it simple until you learn. And so I measured, I got 238 millimeters, and so I brought up the little tab. I'll bring that up now. And you just input that, and you tell it you're using the Rotary, and you're pretty much off to the races. You put in your graphic down here at the bottom, and then you just do it. But I did it, of course, and it came out stretched. Now, some of you are already use rotaries, and you realize that diameter does not equal millimeters. And so that's why it was stretched. And I actually reached out to Longer, feel a little dumb. And they're like, oh yeah, well, the diameter is actually pi, times or divided by the millimeters or whatever. So it ends up being a different number. And once I plugged in that number of the diameter, it was done. And then it came out perfectly. So I got that on. I just untaped it and then used the backside of the paper that I was already using to test it. Came out great. So then I was ready to go ahead and make my tumbler. I just had to get the settings right for the engraving into the actual metal instead of paper, which of course I got wrong at first, but it didn't matter because then I could just change the power and speed, and then just start over again, and it did it right over the top of what I had already done perfectly. So I did not ruin one single tumbler. So it was easy for me to just get it. So the paper actually worked, and to where I didn't waste 2 or 3 of these, which can be expensive, just trying to learn how to make sure I got everything correct. But it wasn't hard. And that's kind of my bottom line, is for an absolute newbie who obviously doesn't understand math, to be able to set this up and do a tumbler from no knowledge, watching their setup video and then plugging in the numbers like it says in the instructions. I was able to do it. The only thing you have to know is diameter. That's really it. So with my limited knowledge of how to do all of this, and I would highly suggest, if you were thinking about getting this machine, that you watch a far more competent person on doing tumblers, if that is what you want to do. But I would suggest that it is great for doing that. Of course, I have a link below, and it is really great and easy for exactly doing this. I don't think you're going to get a much smaller machine that could just be set up for doing this exact thing over and over and over again, taking a very little amount of space. And as you can see, I just took a piece of acrylic and put it up in front of it as my block, and then I use my air exhaust right next to it No fumes whatsoever, no problems there. And I felt very comfortable with the whole setup. So I'd love to hear your thoughts below. You can completely laugh at me, as I have, obviously. But at least I know how to do it now with the Longer. Actually, there is quite a bit more setup, it seems, with other rotaries because you got a lot more stuff to plug in. Whereas this is quite simple and very easy once you know what a diameter is. So that's all I got to say in this video, and I will see you in the next one. Love y'all.